Welcome back to 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network. Chris Brown's been here with me. Josh Doring is now here with me. Josh, how you doing? How's your Christmas? We talked about this already, but we're going to do it again.
It was pretty good, thanks. Can't complain.
Good. Glad to hear it. Per usual, we did this last weekend. We do it typically on Fridays, but, last show of the week. So we bring the trio in to do, and this second hour actually structured the exact same as the Friday second hour typically is. We'll start with the Podium. Final five, what are you watching to round out the hour? But the Podium today is our favorite remaining college football bowl games that are not part of the college football playoff. Because if we said, hey, pick 3 bowl games left, you might pick the 2 semifinals and then the ensuing national championship game after that. So we'll get to those college football playoff games in the final 5. So for this segment, the Podium, your favorite upcoming bowl games, not part of the playoff. We'll start with you, Josh. Your bronze medal of college bowl games still yet to happen.
My bronze medal is the Orange Bowl, North Carolina, Texas A&M. Almost exclusively, of course, this is one of the higher profile games left outside of the college football playoff, but also I'm really interested in this game because of the Texas A&M angle. Mm-hmm. What kind of motivation do they have? And also, they've been talking a lot. If you're going to talk that much and basically declare yourselves worthy of a playoff spot, you need to go take care of business against North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
There's that aspect of it. And if they do, and they look really good, and Notre Dame gets walloped by Alabama, it makes it it's a pointless conversation because it is what it is, and
they also
to go with Notre Dame.
And they also got walloped by Alabama.
Right. And there's no way to definitively say Texas A&M would have been more competitive or should have been in, but it makes it a more interesting conversation and adds to the argument Texas A&M is making. So that's my bronze. Just what does Texas A&M do? Mm-hmm. This is the opportunity they have. Are they going to whine about it? Or are they going to show up and take control what they can control and make the committee potentially look bad if Notre Dame doesn't put up a fight against Alabama?
So this is my bronze medal too, mostly for what you just said. If you want to be in the college football playoff, if you think you deserve to be in the college football playoff, go out there and prove to me that you're one of that you deserve that recognition. Make it clear that the committee made a mistake. It drives me crazy that, teams get really upset and then they go and lose their bowl game to a team that wasn't anywhere near the college football playoff, right? It doesn't typically happen. Typically, the Georgias of the world who barely missed win their playoff games, but Texas is that team. Texas A&M is that team this year. Prove to me that, right, if you really are a team that should have been put in the college football playoff, North Carolina shouldn't touch you. They just shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't let them put up anywhere close to the 62 they just put up on Miami or whatever. There's pressure on Texas A&M to just, right, like you said, it doesn't ultimately matter whatsoever. But if you want to look like something other than a fool, go win this football game and be really convincing doing it. Because if you really do deserve a spot in the college football playoff, or you deserved a spot in the college football playoff, then North Carolina shouldn't be an issue. So that is right. And these are 2 good teams. North Carolina has been solid all year. Texas A&M, of course, one of the 5 best teams in the country this year, 5-6 best teams in the country. So that in and of itself is just an interesting football game. But that other angle of, listen, prove to me that you actually deserved it, instead of just going out there and laying an egg after, like you said, they've been doing quite a bit of talking.
Right. Yeah, I have the Orange Bowl as my bronze medal as well. And I don't have a ton to add that you guys haven't already said, but right. I mean, on the one hand, as much as Texas A&M, of course, believe they were deserving of making the playoff, right? At least we're going to get a potentially competitive game here instead of them getting blown out by Alabama again. I mean, there's no real reason to think that was going to be I mean, obviously, it means something to them, to the bigger picture, to just conversation if they win this game against UNC. Like, they need to do that to back up everything that they've said. But at the same time, at least we're going to get a competitive game here instead of just a right. We don't have any reason to believe that they would be making a dent against Alabama.
It's a fair point.
Now they're going to have to UNC. They should run over UNC if they're really as good as they belong. If they really are belonging in the college football playoff. If they should be running over UNC like you said. But this is a UNC team that can be very, very good at their best. They've battled inconsistency. They've had some weird losses, but it's an explosive team that's fun to watch at its best. They have some of their stars out to prepare for the draft, so we don't know exactly what version of UNC we're going to get. That's a question. But if they show up with the elite version of them, the best version of them, I shouldn't say elite, the best version of them, then Texas A&M cannot show up not ready to go. Otherwise, it could be very embarrassing for them. But I think this will be a good game, so it's my bronze medal as well.
Your silver medal? Silver. Wow, we'll try that again. Your silver. Wow, your silver medal, Mr. Doring. There we go. Hey, beautiful. But what came in second? There you go.
I went with the Peach Bowl.
Okay.
Cincinnati, Georgia. I'm always interested in the AAC team that feels like they should be more respected, and then they get this opportunity a la UCF a little while back.
Mm-hmm.
Can this be a launching point for Cincinnati? Can Cincinnati use this game to get a really good win and build this pedigree, this reputation heading into next season? Because that's part of what UCF did. UCF didn't sniff this kind of respect year one, but when you back it up and you do it again, then you start talking and maybe you've got a shot to eventually really get into the playoff discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an opportunity to get a statement win that Cincinnati did not have on their schedule. Now, the other part of this is just my other thing is play this game out of conference when it actually matters as opposed to a bowl game. But that's neither here nor there for the purposes of this conversation. The other part of this is the other thing that I've really started to harp on, especially this season with all these undefeated, not all these, but the handful of teams chasing undefeated seasons in non-Power 5 conferences. Cincinnati has to at least be able to play with Georgia for me to believe that Georgia would not run the table in the AAC. Right? If Georgia's an AAC team, this is the toughest game on your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati better make it be competitive. Because if they don't put up that much of a fight, and it's hard to really evaluate in these games because now you've got all these guys opting out to go prepare for the draft, and what really is the motivation for Georgia to play, who was dreaming of an SEC championship and play being a national title conversation. And you never know what you're going to get from these teams who are not as happy to be here as Cincinnati is. But I just have a hard time feeling bad, and we've talked about this, feeling bad for Cincinnati, because I feel like these are the caliber of teams, and maybe this year Georgia would have lost a game in the AAC because they haven't been great. Mm-hmm. But these are the kind of teams that this is why I have an issue just saying, oh, Cincinnati's undefeated, put them way up high in the rankings. Mm-hmm. All those other teams that lost a Big 12 game and SEC game probably would go undefeated in the AAC too. So this is the Cincinnati angle of this is very interesting to me. And what it could mean moving forward is they try and establish themselves as a top 10, 15 program that's consistently chasing undefeated seasons.
It also, I think winning this game makes it more likely that they're a preseason top 12, 10 team. And that's important. So I know the college football playoff rankings and the AP poll rankings are two different bodies. I understand that. But the 4 teams that are in the college football playoff were the top 3 teams in the preseason AP poll and Notre Dame, who was 10th. My point being is that where you start matters because you have to prove less.
And especially when you're Cincinnati, because they're not jumping anybody.
Right.
That's what we learned this season.
Right. Mm-hmm. So winning a game like this means that the last thing that the AP poll and the college football playoff committee remembers about you is that you went and beat an SEC team in a bowl game, and a respectable one. That I think that matters, and that would, and Cincinnati was 20th in the preseason AP poll. It's just hard to have 16 teams perform worse than you when you're an AAC team and there are all these Power 5 teams above you. It's just the nature of the sport. So starting closer to 1 makes it easier to get closer to 4. And which is essentially, and like I said, AP poll, college football playoff rankings, 2 different things. But it's the preconceived notion of a football team. That's what a preseason ranking is. It's the preconceived notion of a football team. If the preconceived notion of you is that you're a top 10 team, it's much easier to, by the end of the season, have jumped 6 teams or 5 teams or 7 teams or whatever it is than trying to jump 16 teams, which is what essentially they would have to do if you look at the AP poll, because that would mean there's 15 teams that are closer to number 4 than you are, right? That's just math. And winning this game, I think, makes it more likely that they're one of those top 10 teams, that they're one of those teams that has a lot of respect in your 10th, 11th, 12th in the rankings, which is just hard for a non-Power 5 team to do anyways, but it makes it much more likely if they go out and win this game. It was also my silver medal, by the way. It was also my silver medal.
Likewise, right? I think that's a really good point. That's one I hadn't even really thought about. But given their lack of upward mobility in a season, their ability to climb those rankings in a season, where you start for a team like that is especially important. And so I think that's a really good point. You guys hit on a lot of points. I'll hit on a lot of the points that I had written down here. The only other thing I'll say is from a competitive nature of this game standpoint, I'm really interested to see, right, Georgia's offense has been functioning at a elite level since JT Daniels took over as their quarterback, and the Bearcats defense ranks 2nd nationally in efficiency. So it's going to be a really fun matchup. It's going to be a really fun matchup just in that regard. Like, there's just some interesting things between these 2 teams. Something's going to have to give between these 2 teams' strengths right now. So I'm interested to see how that plays out as well. But yep, that's my silver medal as well.
Just to illustrate my point a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know where LSU started this season in the AP poll?
It's top 10.
6th.
6.
Yep.
LSU sucked this year. Horrible football team.
And lost just about everybody that was an impact player, with the exception of Stingley.
Right.
From last year's team, which is exactly your point.
But what was the last thing that they did?
Right.
They won a national
championship. Clearly the best team in college football.
They were clearly the best team in college football. So they get the benefit of the doubt, and they proved that they didn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, at least this version of this team did, which is fine. But they still started 6th in the country. And winning the Peach Bowl, a Peach Bowl victory being the last thing that you did, and the last thing that the AP poll voters can go and look to, that matters. And to a certain extent, what the AP poll does at the beginning has an impact on what the college football playoff rankings is going to look like, because that's their base. That's where they start with, right? Whether they admit it or not, it's a copycat world. And looking at the teams that are top 10 in the AP poll rankings is probably where they start, even if it's subconsciously. So that was my silver medal. Gold medal, I believe, I find it, that was your silver medal as well, Chris? Correct?
Yeah.
So I am assuming that we all have the same gold medal.
I think so.
And we're all just hours away from that gold medal game. 8 p.m. tonight on ESPN, the Cotton Bowl at AT&T Stadium. Unless you're talking the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, Tulsa versus Mississippi State. I'm not jumping into conclusions, right? No conclusions being jumped to. Oklahoma, Florida, AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. This is our gold medal game. I think it's a consensus. Josh, why is it your gold medal game?
2 reasons. One, it's the best matchup on paper, obviously. 6 versus 7 in the final college football playoff rankings.
Yep.
Florida looked awfully good in the SEC championship game. Oklahoma's been great since they stumbled at the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. So that part of it. But also, the reason I went with this as gold is because, to a certain degree, I can't get, and I said I was intrigued by the idea of these Cincinnati's and UCFs playing these games, but also I just can't get that excited about it because, like I said, play somebody out of conference. And this year was more difficult, I get, but it's still if you want to make the playoff, go schedule better out of conference and compensate for playing the AAC. So I don't look at this as that much of a statement for Cincinnati. It's important for all the reasons you mentioned, but ultimately I just can't put that much stock in a bowl game.
Sure.
But so I'm thinking sort of in terms of long-term implications here. The most interesting long-term implication of the bowl season outside of the national championship to me is what Kyle Trask does without his top 4 receiving targets.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of game we're going to get a better idea about what kind of pro quarterback Kyle Trask is going to be. This is what Baker Mayfield could not do last week. This is why I continue to believe Carson Wentz does not get the credit he deserves for what he did last season. What do you do when you don't have All-Americans, Kyle Pitts, Kadarius Toney? Now, Kadarius Toney is not an All-American the same way Kyle Pitts is, but you get the point. Mm-hmm. These guys who know they're going to the NFL and have opted out. Kyle Pitts is going to be a top 10 pick, probably a top 5 pick. What do you do when you don't have those guys to throw the football to?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's part of why this Florida offense is so elite. Kyle Trask has been great, but he's also got some really, really good weapons. Those weapons aren't there. So I'm very excited and Oklahoma's defense is playing much better and has really started to pick things up as the season went along. So I am really curious to see what he does without these guys that make his life so much easier. Also, this is a test of an NFL quarterback.
Kadarius Toney was an All-American, by the way. A
second team All-American. Second team. Okay, I didn't think he was first team. So there you go. Yeah, you're All-Americans.
It's a good point. First of all, a couple things. It's the Jets. Beat the Jets. I don't care. I don't care if we're your receiving core. Beat the Jets. And I have to commend your ability to stick by Carson Wentz all the time. I really do. As somebody who will go to bat for anybody on the Grizzlies from the grit and grind era, I appreciate you. And even though Mike Conley was horrible last year, I'm like, it's Mike Conley, pick and roll point guard. You want him on your team. Yes. But it is a good point. I also hope it still is a competitive football game even without those weapons, because there's a part of me that thinks, and maybe the Ohio State Clemson game won't be a blowout, but I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm assuming that college football games are going to be a blowout until they're not blowouts. And I think at least the semifinal games, they have chances to be blowouts. So I think this is higher on the list of these of competitive football games. And I hope that remains the case. But it's a very good point. Is this right? Because this Florida team probably not the 7th best team in the country without those All-American options, right?
No.
Does that right? And it also speaks to the to what the college football playoff has done to the importance of bowl games to other teams and to other players. We're talking about what bowl is this? The Cotton Bowl. We're talking about the Cotton Bowl here, right? It's the Cotton Bowl, and all of the best players aren't playing in the Cotton Bowl, and that sucks because it's still a big bowl game against another really good team. But yeah, this is on paper the best game. Kyle Trask, Spencer Rattler. I think coming into next season, we might be talking about Spencer Rattler as one of those guys who establishes himself as, if it's not next year, the year after, as one of those guys who's going to compete to win a Heisman. Yep. Is he the kind of guy? This is his first really big bowl game, and what does that look like for him? He's been good, right, and he's gotten better as the season progressed. Was solid. It was solid in the Big 12 championship game. All of those things. But how does he look? Kyle Trask versus Spencer Rattler. These are two good football teams. Florida looked good. Oklahoma looked good. Both of them the last time they're on the field. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, if you're looking for offense, this is the game for you. The over under for this game is like 70 total points. I think it's just shy of 70. I think it's like 68.5. So if you're looking for offense, look no further than Oklahoma, Florida. I don't have a ton to add again, but yeah, I will say, I'm intrigued by Spencer Rattler as well. I mean, he's been his last 6 games, 15 touchdowns to 2 turnovers. Like, this Oklahoma team is really one where I can point to and say how much they were impacted by the strange nature of this 2020 season. They lost 2 of
Absolutely.
their first 3 games because they had a young, inexperienced quarterback who did not have a regular offseason to prepare. And then they picked things up right after that, and they've won 7 straight. They're on this incredible run. The defense is improving. I just said what he has done, Rattler has done in recent games. This is one where I can really point to this season and say they got off to a slow start, weird circumstances, inexperienced quarterback, all these things, and they're just on this incredible run right now. So they're certainly going to give Florida a run for their money. I'm really curious about, like you guys said, with Kyle Trask, without having some of those weapons, we're going to learn a lot about what he really is, how high his ceiling is, what he's able to do when he doesn't have those weapons. I'm intrigued by it. This is not a college football playoff game, but I think it has the ability to make us feel like it is in terms of its nature, in terms of its excitement. I'm looking forward to it.
Coming up next, the Final Five. What are you watching after that? We'll do all of it next as we work towards the New Year's. You're watching 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network.